You know, I'm often asked, how Community Temple, organizations founded on Christian principles, have a Buddhist temple inside its building? And the answer is very simple. Christianity and Buddhism are basically two schools of thought or two theologies that came out of the same stream of consciousness. They're very much alike. Buddha was about 500 years before Jesus, and he isolated himself at one point in his life. He went away, he sat under a tree, free from all distractions, and he just contemplated life and his whole meaning. And in doing that, he raised to a higher level of conscious awareness where he discovered a way to approach life that was much easier and much more peaceful. Jesus went into the desert for 40 days, they say, and there he was free of all distractions, and he raised into a higher level of consciousness where he discovered an awareness where you could approach life much easier. And both of them went off to teach. They taught two different ways because they're from two different cultures, but their teachings blend together. They both discovered that in this higher consciousness of spiritual awareness, there is a level that they call bliss. And the Buddhists call that nirvana. It's when one is free from all worry, concern, fear, and anxiety. Jesus called it heaven. Neither one of these places are someplace that we go after we leave this earth, but rather they're a state of mind that we can experience here on this earth. Nirvana and heaven. Then they came back to teach. And all their teachings lead to the elevation of one's awareness to the point where we can experience nirvana or we can experience heaven. Buddha had the Eightfold Noble Path, which were 8 characteristics that we can nurture within us to move to that higher place of nirvana. Jesus had the Beatitudes, which were 8 characteristics that we can nurture within us to move to that place in heaven. Both of the men went forth to teach what they had learned, and both of them impressed upon their students that what I have done, you can do also. What's in me is within you. And it is the highest level of human potential that we can rise to. In Buddhism, it's called the Buddha within. And the Buddha within didn't refer to Gautama, who was called the Buddha, but rather the nature of the awareness that he discovered. Christ doesn't refer to Jesus particularly, but rather to the awareness to which he had arisen. Both are states of awareness, and both designate people that have moved to that higher level. Now, one of the primary things that they taught was the law of control. And the law of control simply states that we are happiest, we are most peaceful, we are in the greatest degree of harmony when we feel like we're in control of our lives. And most of you here know that. When you feel like you have control of what's going on around you, then you're pretty well satisfied. You're peaceful. You're okay with things. But the problem exists that there's a great deal of our lives that we have absolutely no control over. And sometimes we don't become aware of that. We try to control the uncontrollable, and that's where suffering comes into place. For instance, death. For most people, there's a fear about death. But the fact of the matter is, we know it's going to happen at some point or other. Every single person that has ever existed has experienced it. It is not the dark shadow that it's made out to be in this particular culture. In other cultures, it's celebrated very much like a birth, yet death scares us. Now, the thing with that is, death scares us. We're going to continue to experience fear until it happens. And we don't know what that is. There's other things that we can't control, like what has happened in the past. No matter how much moaning, groaning, yelling out in pain and suffering and sorrow we do, we can't change a single thing that has happened up to this point in time. It's etched permanently in the tablets of time. Yet we moan and we groan and we feel guilt and we feel shame and we feel suffering, we feel sorrow because of something that we did or something that somebody did to us or something that happened yesterday or years ago. trying to control the uncontrollable. The future is another example. No matter how hard we try, even putting forth our greatest effort, we can't dictate what is going to happen in the future. Now, we can take measures for our safety and our security to make sure that tomorrow or the next day that we are in a place that is comfortable. But for the most part, the future is unpredictable. Your life moves on. For every one of us, our lives basically are like a fine written novel that's in the process of being completed. Every day is a new page. And on every page there are lines that dictate or that record the events of our lives. So today we're on a page of our individual novel or story of life. And as the events of the day are recorded, they mean absolutely nothing. They are just words on a page until we infuse them with emotion. Until we determine what it means to us. We can move into any activity, any situation, any circumstance, begin to perceive what is going on, but it means absolutely nothing until we determine how we feel about it. Life is totally an emotional experience. And how we feel about it determines that the experience we have and the experience we walk away with. So that being the case, everything in life comes down to how you feel about what is happening in your life at any given moment. So how is your life? Good, bad? Happy, sad? Mad, glad, victorious? Or do you feel a sense of defeat? Maybe all of those things from time to time. And if you do, that's perfectly normal. You know, unity is a positive approach to life, but it's an approach to life that says you will never be sad, or you can never be mad, or you can never have a bad day. That's all part of life. It's just that we don't want to get stuck in that one line of the one page of our life. And we don't want to let it to blur the rest of the page and carry over to the pages in the future. But all those emotions are perfectly natural and perfectly normal. There's nobody in here, I don't believe, that hasn't been angry at some point in time, or hasn't been sad at some point in time, or hasn't cried. A natural part of life. But what isn't natural? The one emotion that we experience that has no meaning, that has no purpose, it isn't normal, it isn't natural, and that is fear. When I talk about fear, I talk about any fear outside the fear of safety and survival for ourselves or our loved ones. All the other fears are not based on factual evidence. All the other fears are illusions, they're imaginary, they serve no purpose whatsoever. Jealousy is a form of that fear. Resentment is a form of that fear. A sense of unworthiness is part of that chain of fear. So the question is, where did it come from? We weren't born with it. We didn't come into this world worried and anxious about, oh my God, what's going to happen next? You know, how did it get in there? And how would it feel if it wasn't there? You think about that for a moment. How would your life be if you didn't have the anxieties, you didn't have the fears, you didn't have the worries, you didn't have the doubts that serve no purpose whatsoever? And most of those worries, fears, anxieties, and doubts comes from trying to control the uncontrollable. When something comes into our life, a change, and we're experiencing many, many changes right now that are undesirable. But when an undesirable, unexpected change comes into our life, that's of a permanent nature, that is of an unchanging nature, and we resist it. We struggle with it. We try to stop it from happening. And that's where the suffering comes in. All suffering arises from that which we desire to be different than it is, but can never be. This brings us to the tale of the butterfly. There comes a time in a caterpillar's life when it's driven by some inside force to cocoon itself or to casket itself inside this enclosure and hide away from all of life. And while the caterpillar is in this cocoon, it actually melts down